What's up, you lazy, entitled, basement-dwelling millennials, bootstrapping boomers, apathetic Xers, and goddamn Gen Z kids today? Today we have a great guest, the online organizer everybody would love to clone. And I've been trying to get this guest, Jessica Craven, on for a long time, and finally managed to rope her into coming on and chatting with us. So I'm super excited about that. But Jess, I'll go ahead and let you introduce yourself, plug yourself on the platforms you're on and stuff like that. You can introduce yourself better than I can.
Okay. All right. Hi, everybody. So great to be here. And I just want to make clear that I was not blowing Jordan off. I was not checking my DMs on TikTok for too long. It's embarrassing. But it's not because I think Jordan is the coolest and the most amazing. And I've just met Taylor and he seems really cool too. Actually, one of the smartest content creators I know of on TikTok is Jordan. I think he's brilliant. And so I'm really excited to be here.
That's incredibly
So I'm
high
just
praise.
I mean, really, you're super smart, and that's what we want. Really smart people. That is, I love. So, I am Jessica Craven. I started out my activism with a newsletter called Chopwood Carry Water Daily Actions, which is on Substack. Coming up on 150,000 subscribers over there, which is great. People who
Damn.
every day, I know it's great. Many of those came on since Trump got elected the second time. Honestly, a lot of people getting involved who've never been involved before. So I give people like a little call script, a couple of little things they can do every day to help them just get engaged in democracy, basically, and feel like they're doing something. So that's Chop Wood, Carry Water Daily Actions. And maybe later we'll talk about why it's called that. And then I'm also a content creator. So I'm on pretty much all the platforms at Jess Craven 101. And, that's what I do is I help people engage instead of curling up into a fetal position and deciding that everything is, hopeless.
That is absolutely incredible, and
Yeah.
obviously, why I started following you was because a lot of people, myself included, spend a lot of time bitching and not enough time doing. And you seem to spend a lot of your time doing and then just bitching about what you're doing and how other people need to do it, and that is absolutely the right way to go about it. The leading by example is incredible. And so that's why is this your full-time job, the activism and the content creation, or do you
Yeah.
do you have a okay, I was gonna say,
Yeah.
because between the phone banking and the registering voters and the educating people on in-depth issues and the organizing and all the group calls that I've been in that you've also been in, but we still haven't talked really before this somehow, and the
Yeah.
activist groups, and now apparently 150,000 people on Substack. I'm over here like happy about my 6,000 over there. Go follow me on Substack, people. What are you doing? Come on. Jessica showing
I'll,
me up. I
I'll
was like, where do
recommend
you? I
you.
still don't know where you find the time, but yeah, if you had a full time job on top of this, I don't know how you'd find the time. So
Jordan,
that
you could
that
you could
is
get more subscribers on Substack if you just always carry around one of those little microphones that translate your speech to text, and then you
mm,
just publish that. Because I know you sitting down to write something is
yeah,
is that's
doesn't
asking for
happen.
too much.
I have published a couple things on there, like written them. I'm sure they're full of autocorrect misspellings and things because I do not have the attention span to proofread stuff. Like usually comments, I'm like, oh man, I posted that and I can't edit it now. Well, I guess that's how it's gonna live on the internet. So,
Well,
uh,
you can actually edit things on Substack. I hate to be the bearer of bad news. You can go in and edit, but you know what? I think that people love you for who you are. They probably don't need you to edit things. Grammar is very, 20 years ago.
yeah, for
Spelling,
sure,
Right?
for
who
sure.
cares?
I mean, it
Indeed.
can't be any worse than the MAGA comments. So I'm always at least above a certain bar, and that's really all we can hope to be in life.
Yeah.
So doing this full time, then how do you make a living doing this full time?
Uh, Off Substack, actually, surprisingly. So Substack allows you to have paid subscribers. And I have never believed in, knocking people over the head with that. I've never asked, I don't do paywalls.
Hmm.
I don't do, let's take a subscriber break in the middle of the newsletter. But you can do a paid
Hmm.
subscription. So my policy, which is kind of, I'm maybe in the minority on Substack, that nothing is behind a paywall. So
Hmm.
everything I do for free, I do for paid and vice versa. And then just a percentage of my subscribers opt to pay. And I keep it cheap. It's $5 a month because I think that that's all anybody should have to pay for. I mean, because there's a lot of newsletters out there and it can get really expensive. So people very kindly support me. And that's my
Mm-hmm.
main source of income. And then there's like miscellaneous social media income,
Yeah.
but the Substack is the bulk of it, and that's my bread and butter.
Well,
And
that
that
that is
enables me to do what I do.
incredible.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Oh, that is really good to hear.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I find it hard to ask people for money and to paywall stuff and do that. Like it's a difficult thing. So again, none of my 6,000 subscribers have to pay for anything to see it, but a few of them do. Definitely, I get a little bit of revenue, not nearly enough to live off of, but that is it is awesome to see that people are willing to support the work that you're doing because it's important and allow you to put the time forward in doing it.
Well, thank you.
Um,
Well, people should
so
support you too. I'm just saying, support Jordan.
I appreciate it. So since that is your full-time gig here and your newsletter, and you brought up that maybe we'll talk about the name later, let's talk about the name. What is up with the name?
Okay, yeah, because it's a stupid name. Like it's the worst name for a political newsletter. Every time I tell people the name, I'm just like, oh god. But it started in 2016, so it just at this point would be just like a branding issue to change it.
Yeah.
But the reason I called it that was because when Trump got elected, like many people, I had like it was like sort of nervous breakdown area kind of reaction, very bad reaction. And I knew I had this phrase in my head from my dad. My dad had taught me this phrase, chop wood, carry water. And he taught it to me actually when I was 35 and I was going through a very nasty divorce. And I had to move in with my dad because it was like financial wreckage. It was terrible. And, so I'm like 35, I'm living with my dad. It's very humbling. Single
Mhm.
again, not where I thought my life was going to be, very bummed out. And I was just emotionally wrecked and I was feeling so bad. And I was talking to my dad about it one day, and he had been through two divorces, I guess, three, almost three. And I was like, he was like, you're going to get through this. It's going to take a long time, but you're going to get through it. And I was like, well, how do you get through something that is this painful that takes a long time? And he said, well, you don't think about the future. You stay in the day and you chop wood, carry water. You just get through the day you're in. You take the actions and you trust that, like, if you do that, you will be carried through. And one day you will look back and realize that you survived. And so that was what I did. And it was really fucking hard, but I did it. And then one day I looked back and I was like, look at that. I did. I got through that and I didn't think I was going to. So when Trump was elected and my girlfriend started calling me that night, sobbing on the phone, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Literally just came out of my mouth. Like, I guess we're just going to chop wood, carry water. Like, we're just going to have to just we'll find stuff to do. And so I started finding actions because I was like a sanity thing. And then friends asked me to like send them to me, like email me what you're doing. So I did that. And that's how the newsletter started. But what I really began to find very quickly, I mean, it was bad in Trump's first term, not as bad as now, but it was bad. And that the action not only made a difference and actually helped things be less bad, but kept me sane. And so no matter how bad things are, it's sort of a philosophy that always works. Just for today, I can stay in the day. I can ask myself, what can I do right now? And then let the rest go. Because, like, I can't fight tomorrow's battles, but I can be in the day, get through the day, and just focus on small next right actions. And it's been a design for living that has worked through this whole thing. And I think it's also the reason that we've been able to succeed in many, many areas where otherwise we might have failed, because a lot of people have come together and just taken actions. And so that's why it's called Chop Wood, Carry Water. That makes it a slightly less bad name when you know the backstory.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. No, it's a
I
great
think
name.
it's definitely a good title, and definitely goes beyond just political. Every contestant of the game show alone and Survivor, just think chop wood, carry water too. It's very multi-use.
It's multi-use. You can apply it to so many things. For
Yeah,
sure, for sure, Survivor. And aren't we all sort of playing an existential game of Survivor right now?
right,
We definitely
right.
are.
A little bit.
So is that how you got into activism then? Was just through the sanity of the existential crisis of Trump's first term, or is this something you've always done, or like what's the activism origin story here, and how you got so
Yeah,
involved in so much?
I mean, that's pretty much it. I've always been really, really into politics. Like, I've loved politics. And there were definitely times in my like early 30s where I was like, I want to go get a job as a staffer, but I don't really have any experience or education for it. And I'm like too old at this point. So I actually did apply for a job as a congressional staffer once here in LA, and they were like, no, you're too old and you don't have the right qualifications. So I just sort of gave up on that, but I always loved it. I've always volunteered around presidential elections, going back to like Gore. But this is not the weird thing about my life and what I'm doing right now, and like the content creator stuff, like none of it was planned. It's not, I'm a philosophy major. Like I went to school for philosophy. I used to sing in bands. Like none of this is my life's trajectory is extremely illogical. But I worked in retail sales for a long time. I've waited tables, like bartended, but everything kind of came to this moment where the weird sort of skill sets that I had worked for this. And now I cannot ever imagine, like, I'll do this till I die. It's the only thing I ever want to do again. But, if you're one of those people who's still trying to figure out your life's purpose, I didn't find mine until very late in life. So, and I love it, even though I hate that I have to do it.
Yeah.
Right.
You got anything to?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it, once you get sort of into the realm of politics or just considering sort of the socioeconomic situations in which the world, sits in, like it's difficult to then, at least in my opinion, it's difficult to just like turn it off, because it's always like all these things are happening without anybody noticing. And unless somebody says something and we take action, like people are going to suffer. And so I totally agree with the sentiment that, you're going to do this until you die, because probably there's going to be problems for the rest of all of our lives, if not, our children's too, unfortunately. So
the rest of humanity's existence, unfortunately.
Right.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
if there's people, there's problems. There's no two ways about that. And clearly we're not getting any closer to some utopian dreamscape where everybody's life is perfect. So
well, yeah. We can just start from the equal opportunity playing field, right? That everybody starts at the same stepping point on the ladder would be a good place to rest laurels on someday, hopefully.
Yeah, that would be a great place to get to. It sure would. I agree. But, you do see, I love history. And I think, I'm pretty sure you guys also are big consumers of history. I know I am. And you do see these, like, this eternal battle. I mean, and it is sort of evolving on one plane, but on another plane, it is kind of circling back over and over again, the same territory, these power struggles. And it almost seems to me, you study enough history, and it seems that power is just sort of an addiction, and that everybody who gets a little power becomes very addicted to getting more. And then this sets up these battles between people who are trying to amass more power and the people who are trying to have their own power and freedom. And it just does seem to be something that humans maybe were slightly misprogrammed. Like maybe we could go back to the designer manual and just recode them slightly so that power was not such an intoxicant. It might be a good thing.
Right. I think about that when people talk about how like socialism or communism could never work. It's like utopian, and it's just a pipe dream for some people. And I always think, it's really just our choice as a society, how we want to form our economy. Not, the economic structure for any of those systems is sound within its own structure. It's just the choices that we make and the values that we want to promote and care about and value the highest that matter. So it's really just us, we have the power in some ways and other ways we don't. But like, I think about like social democracies or like a socialist market socialist structure. And like we, as long as we remain democratic in our shifting to whatever system or hybrid system that we potentially want economically, we could be better off, somehow, in a different world, we could already be better off. We could have chosen to do so and chosen leaders who would prioritize those things much earlier on.
Well, yeah.
In a different country, we could be better off right now, today.
It's true. But I will just, like, I think capitalism wants you to think that capitalism is inevitable. But if you study, like, the history of humanity going back before, sort of contemporary civilization, indigenous humans, there was no capitalism there for many tens of thousands of years, and everything seemed to, obviously pluses and minuses to living in sort of more prehistoric times, but
Right. Right.
you know, diseases and all that good stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Plus, no
capitalism is
Wi-Fi.
not
I heard
no
the signal's bad way back then.
no, no TikTok. Oof, rough. But yeah,
Can't do
you
it.
know what I'm saying. I'm just saying I think like capitalism, as I said, really wants us to believe that capitalism is inherent in humanity, and obviously I don't think I'm saying anything revolutionary to say that it's
Mhm.
definitely not. But I don't
For
know.
sure.
Yeah, what do you think,
Well,
Jordan?
I mean, I agree. Obviously think that that people are very selfish by nature, and I do think it wasn't an evolutionary flaw. I think that seeking of power obviously allowed you to reproduce more.
Mm, yep.
You know, you think about like Kangas Khan. It's the Khan gene, right? That's the right
Uh,
one.
yeah.
Um,
Yes. Absolutely.
so you think about stuff like that, and obviously the people who amassed more power, reproduced more,
Mm,
were able to collect more, and I mean, really, everything in nature is just trying to collect as much energy as possible that they can process into something that makes their existence more fruitful for themselves, and that's
mm,
unfortunately, once society developed, a lot of the things that we evolved for became contradictory to society moving forward. And that's and now we're trying to fight our nature in many ways and not doing a very good job at it. We are
yeah.
not evolving socially. We are not evolving really at all because we've again, society kind of negates a lot of those things, and
Right.
it's sad. It's very sad, and for a lot of us, I think it's hard to understand because I would not want the power seems so stressful. Like I don't understand why these
Yeah.
people want to be in these positions and have all of these decisions to make and all of this hate geared towards them. You know, I mean, being social media creators, we get enough hate as it is, and I'm like, man,
Yeah.
I would not want to be in Donald Trump's position or any
Yeah.
president's position and just have that many people who feel that passionately towards me in one way or another,
Yeah.
and it's nuts. It's nuts to me. Like people always ask, when are you going to run for office? Why don't you run for office? I'm like, that is the last thing I want to do is hold public
Yeah.
office. I'm not saying I won't do it if I feel like that's the greater good for me to run that position, but I don't feel like that's where my talents lie. I'm good at messaging. I'm bad at organizing. Like organizing is a special talent that is far too rare, and the organizers do not get enough credit for the work that they do.
Yeah.
And I know that I'm not good at that. That was, by the way, a compliment to you because you do an incredible job at organizing.
Oh well,
Um,
I mean, I appreciate that, but I actually think the real organizers I'm not. I'm like an organizer on social media. I mean, I do.
mhm,
I guess I do organize because I have the newsletter and stuff. But
mhm,
you go to any of these events and you just scores of people who are just putting things together in a very sort of quiet, humble way, and who yes get absolutely no thanks and no credit, but without whom the events and could not happen. Yeah, those people
yeah,
are the true heroes.
mhm,
And they don't get it, and they people will tend to say, they'll say it to me too, why don't you run for office? Because I think, again, first of all, I think you should run for office if you want to. You're so smart, you'd be great. But I think people in America are also very drawn to charismatic people and think
mhm,
that they should be leaders when in fact sometimes they should, but like
yeah,
charisma in and of itself is enough to make someone a good lawmaker.
right. Well, and this is the thing, and I say this a lot. Is there is good candidates and there's good politicians, and very
Right.
rarely are they the same thing. You know what I
Exactly.
mean?
Yes.
And this is like going back to like Hillary or even Kamala, not great candidates. They did not have the charisma to really drum up the enthusiasm behind them, obviously, to win an election, and they didn't.
Right.
But they were incredibly qualified. Two of the most qualified people to ever run for presidency. I mean,
Yeah.
arguably the two most qualified people to ever run for the presidency, just on an
Yeah.
objective scale.
Yeah.
And that's not, and I'm saying that again objectively. Like we have both of our own issues with corporate party Democrats
Yeah.
and their platforms and policies, but on a resume basis, you know, Obama, one of the few people who had that charisma. He was an excellent candidate and also a relatively decent politician. Again, have my issues with him, but he was an effective president.
Yeah.
But it's rare that you get get those two together. And obviously we see that with Trump. He's got, I don't know if I'd call it charisma. He's got
Right.
something
He's got
that
something.
brings
Yeah.
certain people to
This is
him.
a
that obviously,
constant argument of ours. I think he has charisma. I don't think it's like particularly refined charisma. Like obviously his speech is not like classically orative in any like
or coherent.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
But it's his message resonates with people, and
Yeah.
that's where I think it comes into play.
And I'm looking at, so charisma, compelling attractiveness, or charm that can inspire devotion in others. I mean, by that definition, he absolutely does have charisma.
Yep.
Yeah, he does.
See?
That's true.
Is he
So again, this
definitionally
candidate, obviously, he's won twice, sort of, anyway.
right?
And he's clearly horribly unqualified for the job. Horrible politician.
I don't know. He pretended to be a boss on TV. Isn't that good enough? Like that's what it's all about, right?
He was heavily edited to be made to seem like a boss on TV, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, if we are being real, Donald Trump is about the most American president. If we're really honest about what America is, this is what we've created. He's a reality TV star who is completely unqualified and just says the most outrageous shit that drives clicks, and that's America. So, like,
it's a culmination of the worst of America. I mean, we also have like Obama maybe was the culmination of the best of America so far. I mean, I think that, again, I also have my issues with him. Not a perfect president, but like we'll never get a perfect president.
Right.
Right. Never going to happen. And I think the search for perfect lawmakers has really hurt us repeatedly in this country.
Especially on the left.
Yes, it is our besetting evil. So, he wasn't perfect, but yeah, he was the sort of the culmination of all of our aspirations and sort of bending the arc in the right direction. And then with Donald Trump, the arc just kind of fell over and So,
well, I think the DNC's issue is they don't know how to pick any particular person to be run for president. Biden barely won, and that was their only pick that's won since 2000. Obama wasn't their pick. He came out of nowhere and he just took over the field. So like they're like 1 for 5,
And it's actually really funny that you say that, because it makes me realize when the chair election was happening, and I don't know if you guys paid any attention to the DNC chair election.
Oh, but definitely, because it was our party chair, our state party chair that won.
Yeah. Okay. And do you like Ken Martin?
Oh, absolutely. And actually, this was something I was going to bring up to you. I had in the notes, because I remember we were on a group call with Ben. What's his last name? I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank.
Ben Wickler.
Wickler. Right. I was. That's what I wanted to say, but I was afraid I was going to mess it up. So, and I remember you're like, oh, I was rooting for you, and so this is what I was. I guess the way that I had the question written is from that I've kind of gotten the impression that you're maybe more of you fall more in the moderate scale of party politics.
Not at all. No, not at all. I would say I'm pretty far to the left. That's interesting that you think that. I didn't know Ken all that well, and to be honest, he has pleasantly surprised me. But Ben Wickler, the reason I was supporting him so wholeheartedly was because he was the unbelievably effective organizer. Like, so effective. So good at winning elections, so good at bringing volunteers in, and then it's one thing to get volunteers signed up, like the DNC got tons of volunteers signed up for Kamala Harris's election, but once they brought them in, they didn't
actually
train them. There was no training, and they didn't actually get them to do the things that would have, or the training was really bad. So great to be able to get volunteers. Ben knew what to do with the volunteers and managed to also, I thought, communicate on social media more effectively than any other state party chair I've ever seen. Those were my reasons. As far as his politics, I don't even actually know he's Democrat. Beyond that, I'm not sure if he's considered moderate. I don't know.
So I guess, I would say, Nancy Pelosi went hard for Ben, and that's why it's like as soon as Nancy Pelosi throws her weight behind somebody else, it's like, sorry, I don't even know who you are or what you feel, but if she's behind you, I am not. If there's another option, and then obviously it was easy for us because we had, But and obviously we were going to be biased from the start. Ken Martin's been a great chair here in Minnesota, and so like I was very excited. I think Ken has done an excellent job of understanding party demographics in a way that most party Democrats don't. Like, because
Right.
the party is run by people who live in these bright blue liberal bastions in
Yeah.
California and New York,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
And they have
Mhm.
no fucking clue what's happening in the rest of the country and the way that the rest of the country views them. They are and they don't want to learn. They refuse to listen and learn.
Yeah.
And
True. All true.
Minnesota is obviously, I mean, we are arguably the bluest state. If we really want to get down to it, like, we're the only state that never voted for Ronald Reagan, right?
Oh,
Like,
wow. I didn't know that. That's amazing.
yep, we have not
The
voted
only state?
Republican. The only state that has never voted for Ronald
Oh,
Reagan.
that's amazing. Okay. Yeah, go on.
Mm-hmm. And granted, you know, our Minnesota candidate was on the ticket both times, so like that helps. But yeah, we haven't voted Democrat since Nixon. And so, or I mean, we haven't voted
Oh, okay.
Republican
Yeah,
since
yeah.
Nixon.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And it's curious, right? Because we are a Midwest state, we are a very rural state in many ways. And so, like, figuring out, like, Ken knows, like, maybe even if the candidate who is running in a certain district isn't his preferred candidate or his preferred policies,
Yeah.
if they're the right candidate for that district, that's the district, or that's the candidate that the party needs to support. And that's
Right.
why Ilhan Omar, who I don't think he's probably the biggest fan of, because Ken can be a little bit more moderate,
Right.
knows that she is the right person for that district and
For that
should not
district,
be
yeah.
like primaried or like, or you know how with AOC they're always trying to get her out all of the time, primarying
Right.
her and stuff like that. And he understands she's the right candidate for that district. He understands that rural candidates with more moderate or rural districts with more moderate candidates are the right people for that.
Right.
And he knows how to win elections in that sense and hold seats. And I think that that's part of what has made Minnesota stay so effectively blue. When, you know,
Right.
our neighbors to Wisconsin teeter back and forth and have been completely overrun in their House by Republicans and gerrymandered to hell and all of that
Yep.
stuff. So
Yep. Yep.
I think he's got the pragmatism that is desperately needed for the party, and that's why I'm a big fan.
That's great. And I will just say, well, we can move on, but I've been really impressed. I've been very pleasantly surprised. I love the town halls that they're doing. I love, as a content creator, I don't know, have you been you are looped into the whole DNC content creator thing, right? Are you doing those calls yet? Anybody is welcome, so you're not being excluded. I'm going to send you a link.
Yeah, send me a link, please do.
He's got, content creators. They're doing weekly, they just started this, weekly briefings, and they're like, please send the invitation out to any content creators you know. So they're sort of understanding how to, move that lever, and I'm encouraged.
Yeah, actually, the DFL is just starting that too. They reached out to me, so they've been doing the same. Actually, it's daily war room morning meetings, and then they put them up on YouTube, so you don't actually have to be in the call, which is awesome.
That is great, and I wish the DNC would do that as well. Daily,
yeah.
Yes.
I
love the words
especially
war room.
Yeah.
I do.
No,
I just
so
love war room. Anything that says war room on it, I'm like, oh.
it has a nice ring to it for sure.
It does. Yeah.
I'll send you that. I'll send you the links for what we're doing, just if you want to like look at it. Obviously, you're not in Minnesota. You're on the West Coast, right? California.
Yeah, I am. But I'm on the mailing list for the Minnesota. I get all the Minnesota state press releases.
Okay.
Someone in the party asked me if they could. So I get all the every bill, every. I know a lot.
They send way too much. I'm on that same mailing list, and I stopped reading them because I'm like, you need to narrow this down, boil this down to relevant information, because if there is relevant information in there anymore, I'm not getting it, because there's no way that I'm going to sit here and read through every budget bill that you guys are excited about passing that nobody in the world's going to care about. So,
7 emails a day. It's a lot of emails.
Yeah, I know. It's
that's even a lot of emails just to like have ChatGPT summarize for you. You know, like that's it's a lot of copy pasta to get a summarization.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, but no. So I'll show you that. I'll send it to you just if you want to check it out to get ideas. Hopefully, if you put enough things in enough of the right people's ears, eventually these things kind of trickle into the party politics, and I think that's where just you can't have too many good ideas right now, and so yeah, I'll share that with you.
Okay.
But anyway, I originally reached out to you, obviously before the election, and unfortunately, I totally get how keeping up with the messages on social media is impossible.
Yeah.
So I hold no grudges, but I learned so much from you, and one of the things I learned about from one of your videos was ballot roll off, and like
Yeah.
how bad it is with hard numbers. And I don't even know where you got the numbers from because I went and tried Googling everything that you were talking about, and I was like struggling to dig up like the hard numbers that you got. But obviously, we're a little behind on on the 2024 election to talk about ballot roll off. But I think it's a really good time. There's a really good thing for people to understand and know about for 2026, especially midterms are always a struggle, and then elections beyond. So would you just
Well,
do your ballot roll off spiel?
I will, but also I will say, so this was a study that was done by Sister District, and Sister District is an organization that does nothing but work on state legislative races, right? So they work only to flip state legislatures, as Minnesota has a solidly blue. They're still solidly blue in the state legislature, right? Or are we like a one
Kind
seat
of. We've got
down?
we've got a 50-50 split in
Right,
our state house.
that's
Yeah.
right. Okay,
Um,
we did flip
we
it
still hold the
completely, and then
Senate.
we
Hmm.
lost a little ground, right? So send you because there's an actual there's a study, there's like a white paper that they did. They did a big sort of focus group, talked to a lot of people, and the reason this is actually relevant to your viewers right now is because we have two big sets of state legislative elections coming up at the end of this year in Virginia and New Jersey. And Virginia, especially, they have their elections on off years, so it's like 2017, 2019, 2021. And this year we've got gubernatorial, and also I think all or most of the state house seats are up. And if we're able to, I believe right now we have Democratic majorities in one of the state chambers. I can't remember, maybe not the second, but we also want to elect a Democratic governor, of course, so that we can go back to a trifecta in Virginia. And the reason that we don't win more state legislatures in general is because of ballot roll off. So I'll tell you just generally what it is, and this is what I made the TikTok about that I think you saw. Um, so they did the study and talked to people who vote. Now, when we say ballot roll off, we simply mean there's a ballot. You've got, say, president at the top, U.S. Senate, right? Big marquee races. And then you've got all the stuff below, your state legislature, all the way down to, mayoral, board of
School board,
supervisors,
zoning,
school board, right?
planning. Yeah.
On the left, roll off, meaning they fill out the top of the ticket and leave everything else blank, according to them, 80% of the time. 80% of people they spoke to who were on the left did not fill out anything below the top of the ticket. For people on the right, 40% of the time they rolled off. So they looked at 2020 numbers, and they found that if they could decrease roll off by, if in 2020 they had decreased roll off by just 2%, they would have picked up 14 state legislative chambers. Think about
Wow.
that. 2%. So, and then I'll just say, like, they did a study on who is rolling off. They found it was more women than men, more voters who identify as Black or Latino, more young voters, which is why I'm glad to be talking about this here. And then they even looked into why people were rolling off. And for a lot of people on the left, it was a lack of confidence. Well, I don't know exactly about these races. I'm not even sure exactly what they do, and I haven't done all my research, so I'm just going to leave them blank. Whereas on the right, there's a little bit more of a dogmatic, I just vote straight party's ticket all the way up and down. And on the left, we're like, well, if I
It's a
don't know for
team.
sure, yeah, exactly. And then, of course, on the right, they've also got a lot of understanding of states' issues because they're states' rights people, right? And people on the left believe that the federal government is the most important, so they're much more focused on that. So, what Sister District was really trying to do is just to first educate people about what state legislatures do, because it turns out a lot of people don't even know. If you ask people, what does a state legislature do? Like 90% of people cannot answer the question.
Dang.
They said people were saying things like they pass federal laws, or they just like rubber stamp what the governor says they want. Like, it's okay. Civics education is not maybe the greatest, but what we're trying to do is instill in Democrats and people on the left, even if you don't identify as a Democrat, that it is our civic duty to vote up and down the ballot. Whereas right now the belief seems to be it is my civic duty to only vote in races where I know everything about the candidates. So if we could get people to just start voting Democrat up and down the ballot, and there's great tools now. There's Blue Voter Guide. You can go and enter your address, and they'll give you every race that's on the ballot, so you can fill it all out in advance.
I like Ballotpedia. It's really cool.
Yes. Guides.vote. There's a bunch of them now. But the reason this is so important is, and the last thing I'll say is that state legislative races often come down to an absurdly small number of votes. In 2022, 63 votes flipped the Pennsylvania State House. 63 votes, right? In 2017, Shelley Simons, who was the final seat that would determine the balance of power in the Virginia State House, lost her election by a single vote. It was a tie. They had to draw the name out of a hat. If she had gotten one more vote, not only would she have won, they would have flipped the entire chamber. And something like 700,000 people would have gotten Medicaid 2 years sooner than they did. So life or death stakes. So that's my spiel on ballot roll-off.
We had a pretty sticky situation ourselves here this time around in the year 2024. Down kind of where I live, there was a state representative that he won by like 21 votes or something like that. And there was an issue where some of the votes got like destroyed, and so they couldn't re-verify them. And so there was a whole like lawsuit about those votes. Like it was that close. And so it's crazy how close it gets.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that, and it was very suspenseful for a while, what was going to happen with that. And then, of course, in North Carolina, we just had the Republican Supreme Court nominee trying to steal an election, and he could do that because Allison Riggs had only won by 763 votes, which actually was, plenty. But when you're a Republican trying to steal an election, the smaller the margin, the better, right? So that's another reason. It's just like Republicans are going to try shenanigans, so we want big, big margins. So I get excited about it though, because think about it, you guys, 2%, like if we can just get people to fill out their ballots going all the way down, we can, the possibilities are really huge. And of course I get excited about that.
Right. They're huge. They also requires, Democratic politicians to, care about progressive policies that actually help everyday people. Some moderate Democrats that were Chuck Schumer don't seem to care that much. So, I think that.
No, go on. Sorry.
I think that might be some of the apathy comes from as well. If they're not like, the team aspect doesn't really go as far for Democrats. I think they pay the people as voters, Democrats. I could be wrong, just pulling this out of my, but I'm pretty sure they pay more attention to the issues and a little bit more to the actual like elections than, like I said, they're more educated voters. And so, I lost my train of thought there.
Well, I mean, Chuck Schumer, I have been putting in my newsletter for people to call and demand he step down for the longest time.
Mm-hmm.
I was just on an Indivisible call before I came here. There was a new poll out. He's got 17% approval rating. And
why is he still there?
Because what I said before, fucking power is addictive. It is obviously, he can't let it go. And it is very frustrating that not a single Democratic senator has called for him to step down. This is just, it's like, and what are we going to do? We can't take our toys and go home. Like, there's nowhere else to go. We have to keep chipping away. Like I tell people, every time you call your Democratic senator on any other issue, add at the end of the call, and Chuck Schumer needs to go. I think it would be a game changer for our party. And frankly, I don't like Hakeem Jeffries much better. But he's moderately better, but only really moderately. If we got new leadership at the top of both of those caucuses, it would be a game changer.
I gotta check. Is Steny Hoyer still a thing? Is he?
He is still a thing.
He won. He won re-election. Yeah.
He's another one. I don't much like anybody in Democratic leadership, although I have talked to Wickler, and she seems pretty great. But you want a leader. You want somebody who talk about charisma. You want someone with charisma in that position. Also with smarts.
Jasmine Crockett now is running for the House Oversight Committee, right?
And for some reason, AOC is not, but I think Jasmine Crockett would be amazing. I think
Well,
that'd be a
yeah,
blast.
I think the reason that AOC is not is because Jasmine Crockett was the vice chair of it.
Right.
Uh,
Okay. So that makes a lot of sense.
and it makes sense. Like, there's no reason for AOC and Crockett to run for the same seat. Obviously, AOC ran first. Nancy Pelosi once again was like, "Hey, how can we lose even more votes? I know. Let's put this old white dude with throat cancer in here again and just
I know.
piss off all the people we already pissed off to lose this last election, because losing to Donald Trump is clearly our favorite fucking thing in the world to do." Like,
Yep.
so
Believe me.
I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. And hopefully that'll start to be the shift. Where we might start to see some of that change in leadership.
Yeah. And it would be, if she becomes the new chair, that would be a huge deal, because I think that would mean that they went around seniority a little, and that would be
My bad.
Whoops.
TikTok will not allow you to stop listening when you exit their app. It's the worst when it comes to that. I just opened up my phone and it was left on it. It's like, oh, great, you're back. I'm ready for you again. Exactly where you and I'm going to start playing.
It sounded like it might have been me, so that's good.
It was.
I like that.
It was. Yeah, I was catching up on some recent videos. I was watching the one where you interviewed Pete Buttigieg, and that looked really cool.
Such a disaster. It was a disaster for me. Oh God, terrible. I look crazy. My shirt's all askew. It was terrible. But it's like as soon as I went in there and saw his face, I lost all ability to function on any level.
Yeah.
What do you think about him, Jordan? How do you feel about Pete Buttigieg? You're silent.
Pete Buttigieg. Well, I gotta be very careful with what I say, because I'm actually gonna have the opportunity to interview him here in a couple days personally.
Oh my God, really?
I know. So I'm super excited. So I guess what I think about Pete is, I think Pete is an amazing messenger. Like, he can go up there and he can go into the lion's den and tame the lion on their platforms, right? He can go on Fox News and shut them down. He can go up there and he can take anything they throw at him and just, absorb it and shoot it back out at them tenfold, and it's incredible. And this is what the Democratic Party needs. So much of this. Gavin Newsom was doing that for a little while, and then decided to platform Charlie Kirk and shit, and has just completely fallen off and lost. But I think and I really do believe that Pete, this is where he should exist in the Democratic Party, is doing what he's doing right now. I think that is excellent. I think that he would be really great if he decided to run for Congress or Senate in Indiana, where obviously that's where he's from.
Interesting.
I thought he just turned down an opportunity to run in Michigan. Yeah.
Michigan.
So I think he's keeping his options open for 2028.
He seems like he's keeping his options open. I don't think that president is the right spot for him, especially right now. Partially because I do think that he is too moderate when it comes to his policies. He definitely feels very aligned with party politics in a lot of ways. And again, not a horrible thing in certain situations, but I think that that's really been shooting us in the foot in presidential campaigns, as somebody who's not more appealing to the progressives. Just because in my comments too, the people who really support Pete tend to be very party line Democrats, generally older people. Older white people seem to be the ones who just, and this is completely anecdotal, I haven't done
makes sense.
And I think it's that's not who we need to be appealing to at the moment, because we're still we have them. Those people are going to vote for whoever we put up, and we need to be getting some of these more progressive people, younger people who feel disenfranchised by the party. And I'm not sure he's there. Now, I'm happy to be proven wrong on that if he runs again. I
was thinking about if we, from your video, Jess, it seemed like you had 5 minutes maybe with the guy. So I'm hoping we get at least that, if not a little bit more, hopefully. But I was thinking about what sort of framing should we design this question, and I'm kind of coming into this realization where we have to frame it as if Donald Trump and right now the Republicans are the party of change in the Republican, in just the majority of like Republican voters, obviously, and they feel like they're fixing the thing that a lot of Americans believe is actually broken, and Democrats seem to be still, especially party line. Right. They're like, yeah, actually, we're doing okay by like the standards of which you would like normally, determine whether or not an economy and people are doing fine, except for the few talking points that they'll bring up. But they won't acknowledge this sort of like any sort of systemic issues with the way that things are going right now. And I think Pete, unfortunately, is not presenting. I have not seen him present a acknowledgement of that sort of pervasiveness that exists between within the electorate of the United States, Americans, and versus like somebody like Bernie Sanders or AOC. They're very much more willing to say, yeah, like things are not good and there are things we can do. And that's why you should care about what things we care about.
But did you see the little clip he did with me? I'm not saying go watch my interview, but he actually very deliberately used that language both when he was talking to me and in the speech I saw him do earlier. The status quo is broken. What we're doing is not working. We need to, in the little blurb with me, like the sort of New Deal, post-World War II framework is over. It's done. And I sort of clarified, you mean like getting rid of stuff from the New Deal? And he was like, no, but like reimagining it has to be reimagined. He's very preoccupied with AI, which I think you should be. And I'm not saying he is actually the anti-status quo. I mean, he's a where is he from? What's his consulting firm that
McKinsey he worked for?
Yeah, no, that's always going to put a big, that's
I think he certainly like he's riding that line. I think he's like trying, he rides that line where he still stays mainstream for the kind of just like blue no matter who Democrats, and then just sort of like pokes at some of those things. And I think if he fully committed to like most of the progressive platform, at least with economic,
economic
positions.
populism.
Yeah.
That's really what we need.
I would have no issue with
economic populist.
You don't think so? Okay, interesting. So who do you like, Jordan? Who do you like?
For 2028, it's hard for me to say because every time I like start talking about candidates this early on, somebody new comes out of the woodwork that you didn't see. It used to be that way. Then it's just like let's recycle, a Clinton or a Biden every few years. But
Obama's daughter's old enough to run for office yet? Maybe.
Right. Yeah, no, for sure.
And I do think we need some new blood. This is part of why I think that, especially with the Democratic Party, they need to get their head out of the. I almost think name recognition with the Democratic Party is a bad thing. Like you don't want a candidate with name recognition because here's the problem: is Republican conservative propaganda and mudslinging. They're very effective at it. It's one thing that they do very, very well. And so every time you drag out one of the greatest hits who's been around the party and everybody knows who they are, the Republican Party has years and years of stuff, and a lot of it's complete and utter bullshit, but once you drill it into people's head enough, you start to think about it, and you have that connotation towards those people. That was one of Hillary's biggest problems, right? They had 30 years of anti-Clinton rhetoric that they're just like, we don't even need to come up with anything new. We just open up the greatest hits and start throwing those out there. And I think that's why Obama was partially so successful, is because nobody knew who he was, and they had to start making all of that stuff up from scratch. And I think that this is why Tim Walz as the VP was an excellent choice. I think that they grossly underutilized him, but nobody knew who he was. He came out with the right messaging. And they're trying to sit here and build mudslinging and propaganda around him from scratch and throwing it out there and seeing what sticks, and you can see through that in the early part. But as they start finding the stuff that sticks, that goes away. So I mean, obviously, I do think that Tim Walz would be an excellent candidate. He still fits the old white dude thing that like we're ready to move on from old white dudes.
Right.
But also, are we ready to move on from old white
Right.
dudes? Because every time we've
Is
ran anything other than an old white dude, except for Obama, we've not done
yeah.
well. So,
Right.
like,
Right.
Yeah, unfortunately, I was trying to think. There's just not really many progressive current Democrats that are, I think, willing to make that jump right now. There's certainly
Mhm.
many of them within the Democratic Party in Congress
Right.
today, but I just don't see like an AOC or Jasmine Crockett like feeling like, yeah,
I would love to
2028.
have that ticket right there.
Right,
AOC
yeah.
Jasmine Crockett, right there.
God.
I mean,
Be
yeah,
amazing.
likely to win. I don't know. I'm
Yeah.
just saying, who I
Mhm.
think would even be like somebody I would care to like promote at this point.
Mm.
I do think Tim Walz is probably the closest thing to a progressive that the Democratic Party is going to stand behind at this point.
Right.
What
And there'll
about
be, well,
you?
we've got Wes. Well, I think there's a lot of really interesting people coming. I mean, I think that Wes Moore is going to run. I think he's interesting. I
Hmm.
don't know that much about him, but he sounds
Mm.
very compelling.
Hmm.
I think Andy Bashir is going to run rather, and I think that, you
Oof.
know,
I think
there's
that's
an argument.
that.
Do you think that's
I
bad?
mean, I like Andy Bashir. I don't think that he's the right option for president right now, partially because I think he's way too valuable in his current position.
He's
Like that's why
running.
I was like, I don't think pulling him for VP would have been a good idea. You know, like thinking about like a governor in a traditionally red state that's held, you know, governors are way more powerful than people give them credit for, and we need to stop
Absolutely.
like
Yeah.
pulling them out of that. But anyway,
Yeah.
sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, it's fine.
That's my
No,
biggest.
he is
So anyway,
running though. I mean, it sounds like he's making all the
hmm
moves. And then JB Pritzker is going to win, and
another
he's
billionaire. I mean, yeah.
yes, he's another billionaire. I mean, he is another billionaire. He at least has the fire and the willingness to come out at, like, from the very first moment, fearlessly coming out and calling out this moment for what it actually was, which I appreciate. I frankly had never given
hmm
him a thought in my life until
hmm
then. Um, but I think that will it take a billionaire to beat the billionaires? I don't know. Maybe. I don't even know at this point. I agree. There's nobody I'm like, oh my God. But
Yeah.
I
I
I
mean,
just think that like that's also part, like I think Pete is talking a lot about like how things are like that things are really bad right now with the Trump administration, and it's fine to call that out, but I think that's not the correct framing for if you're
hmm
gonna win the next election. Uh, Kamala did literally everything she could to break down 2025 and Project 2025 and all that stuff, and go democracy, and clearly that just didn't get her over the finish line.
well, I think that two things happened there. I think that there was a great lack of belief. People did not believe. And you could see the messaging. There was Mike Potterotzer, who's like this amazing genius political strategist guy. He kept doing slideshows. Every week we would be in his little presentations, and he'd be like, people are not sufficiently alarmed. I am worried that people are not believing the threat. And I actually got to a point where I wouldn't even get on his webinars anymore because I was like, he's such a Debbie Downer. We're going to win. We're going to be fine. And turned out to be completely right. People would not believe that it was real. So there was that. And then I also think misogyny was just
yeah.
misogyny.
I mean, I definitely think misogyny had part of it to do, and I do think we get. I'll talk about that in a second. I do want to agree with the fact that people were not sufficiently alarmed because the amount of times that I was told I was crying wolf to this day,
Oh,
the
yeah.
amount of times I'm so. How many times are you gonna cry wolf and call people you disagree with a Nazi? I'm like, they're doing Nazi shit. They are literally taking people without due process and putting them in a concentration camp. That's Nazi shit.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not crying wolf. The wolf is here and blowing down the house now. Like, this
Yeah.
is. Wait,
The wolf is
how
eating
many
your
more
face.
times?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, I do think, but I think that was the effectiveness of Trump's rhetoric. Is it was all so over the top all the time that people got so desensitized to it, and it can't happen, and somebody's gonna stop him, and he'll never really get away with it. And then like we had the first time, and it was bad, but they managed to desensitize January 6th. And that's where I was like, yeah, people are not sufficiently alarmed. If that was not the deal breaker, we are fucked. Like, you cannot message well enough to make them understand how bad this could and will be if he gets reelected, and if we hand him a Republican majority in the House and Senate.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like that was the worst case scenario. There are no more brakes on this train. And even like the judicial branch breaks. He's like, he appointed most of the people on the Supreme Court at this point. He's appointed a ton of federal judges, and now the court has shown that they are completely incapable of actually enforcing their rulings. Like, why haven't the marshals gone? Why haven't they at least called on the marshals to go enforce their contempt of court? Like, there's no brakes left on this train. I tried explaining that this entire time, and I felt like a Debbie Downer. And I'm like, look, I hope I'm wrong, but this is not something that, like, we can just be like, oh, oops, I was wrong, and we can do a oopsie redo thing on. Like, if I'm right, everything's bad. If I'm wrong, then great. We averted a crisis, and I was wrong.
Or we're somewhere in the middle, leaning towards the everything is bad, with a little bit. I think that some courts, including some Trump-appointed justices, are putting the brakes on and have been able to stop a great deal of what he's tried to do. There are many people will argue that, I mean, we're already in a constitutional crisis, and other people are like, yes, we are. And there's like still, those judges are still working on him about the, Kilmar Abrego Garcia. There are hearings happening today. They're setting something up so that if they hold him in contempt, it will stick. Like, I'm not saying everything is fine. I'm not saying the brakes haven't totally come off, but some brakes are still on the train. I think some brakes have come off and some brakes are still there. And every break I'm thankful for. So like the courts have been doing a lot of incredibly heavy lifting. And I think it's important to acknowledge that, because otherwise people just, again, end up in a fetal position. But obviously we also have a great deal of work to do when we get out of this, assuming we do, to repair our courts. The places, especially the Supreme Court, where they're just fucked.
Right. I was surprised that the courts were so on top of Trump and all of the agency cuts and federal employee firings. And even though Congress was like, I don't care what you do anymore, even though that's my job to do those things, feel free to do them, Trump. But the courts were like, no, that's Congress has to do it, man. You can't do it. And so I'll give them credit for that as well.
Yeah.
Which is what's insane to me is the premises of the separate but equal power branches of government maintaining that structure is based on everybody being greedy for power, right? Like every single branch wants to make sure that they maintain their power, and they're going to fight to have as much of power as they can have. And this has been relatively effective, because even under, Republican presidents with Republican Congress, when they tried to consolidate executive power, Congress was like, oh, fuck no, that's our thing, and you're not taking that away from us. Or Democrats, same thing. Anytime that or somebody's tried to take judicial power away, they're like, they'll rule against it. Absolutely not, because that's our power. And the fact that Congress has just bent the knee and been like, here's all of our power, we'll give it to the executive branch, no questions asked, we are in lockstep now. And that's where it's like, what we were talking about earlier is everybody has this deep desire for power, and power is really hard to give up. And that's why I've been so dumbfounded at just how readily Congress, especially Republicans in Congress, have been willing to just package up their power in a bow and deliver it to, Donald Trump's lap personally.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. Yeah, I agree.
Don't you know they're the party of Constitution, Jordan?
Yeah.
Come on. Our forefathers,
Yeah.
and rule of law,
That's right. Yeah, it is very confusing. I just assume that their fear of Trump is bigger than their lust for power, or that they assume that being sort of under Trump is more power than being an independent Congress member. Like their fear, they are sort of glomming onto Trump's power and their addiction to power. That's the only way I can understand it, is that they think that's more powerful.
Literally every single sitting congressperson endorsed, or Republican congressperson endorsed Trump this time around, versus it was like 25 to 30% last time in 2020 or 2016 maybe. So like it's now his Congress. Even the there's what, like 3 Republican senators that like voted against some of his nominees at all, like one time. That's crazy.
Yep, we've got Collins and Tillis, who occasionally show a little spine. Mitch McConnell, who doesn't really give a fuck anymore. And
And I mean, and this is
maybe,
Mitch
yeah.
McConnell's monster. Like Mitch
Oh,
McConnell
totally.
and Dick Cheney and all the
Yeah.
ones who are clutching their all the
Karl
Republicans that are
Rove.
clutching their pearls now. Yeah, Karl Rove. All the
Mm-hmm.
ones that are
Mm-hmm.
clutching their pearls now. It's like this is the monster you built, and you're not mad that what he's doing. You're mad that it became self-aware and you don't have control over that monster
Oh
anymore.
yeah.
You are mad that you have lost the power that you exploited, because it was always like, we can press the propaganda a little bit further to win this election. We can, we
Yeah.
can indulge the conspiracy theories a little bit more. We can
Yeah.
we can give a pass on this little bit more of corruption if it means that we get to maintain that power. And
Yeah.
eventually, like, that was the blueprint that built the monster that became Donald Trump. And now they
Yep.
don't have the ability to control the party anymore, and they're mad about it. It's like, fuck you, disingenuous fucks. Like, I'm glad that you're calling him out, but you're enemy of my enemy and everything is fine. But like,
Yeah.
do not expect a parade.
Oh no, fuck no. I mean, yeah, Mitch McConnell. There's, I won't even say. I won't say the things I want to say because they're unkind. But yeah, no, there's
I say,
nothing.
after a lifetime in public service, the only thing that the only thing of value Mitch McConnell will ever pass is away.
There you go. I can't disagree with you on that. He's been an absolute menace to our democracy in every way. And Karl
Mm-hmm.
Rove and Dick Cheney. These are. I mean, it goes all the way back to Nixon. It's like it started there, and it's just like
Mm-hmm.
festered and
Yep.
metastasized. And at any point, someone could have said, "This whole fucking way we're going is unacceptable.
Mm-hmm.
We are predicating all of our power on racism and
Mm-hmm.
greed. We need to stop." And no one ever did that.
Oh, but
I
haven't you
mean,
heard Democrats are the party of racism and the KKK and all of that? They're the ones who wanted slavery, and there was no such thing as
Mm-hmm.
a party switch ever. That didn't happen.
No, Lincoln
Um,
was a Republican. Yeah. Yeah. So
no, I
exhausting.
think politicians like Mitch McConnell, Dick Cheney, Nixon, McCarthy always existed, but the media platform never allowed them to be so prevalent in our society. And so, honestly, it's technology that's literally kind of ruined probably our democratic systems. The
Yeah.
ability to disseminate information and disinformation, I guess, really effectively is the problem.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's true. And it's, not to be boring, but so I'm very obsessed with the Robert Caro, Lyndon Johnson biography books. There's like four of
Hmm.
them. They're very interesting. He
Hmm.
goes into a whole section at one point, I know this is very in the weeds, about a Texas gubernatorial candidate who became the governor, who started out as a radio star and
Hmm.
literally was Donald Trump before Donald Trump. And he got all of his messaging out on the radio using sort of entertainment to package himself as like a down home, homespun guy, but he was like a fucking demagogue and literally got people who just worshipped him. And it was the same playbook. And he did become governor. But it was just that because there was no social media, he didn't get to, for whatever reason, he stopped there. But like, yeah, these people have always existed and they're frighteningly good at what they do and harnessing hate and lying and getting people to love them even though they're lying through their teeth. It's just that right now we have social media, which just rocket fuels their ambitions.
well, I mean, Ronald Reagan, same thing. He was,
Yeah,
a movie star. Then it was the charismatic messaging, and oh yeah, I'm not a cowboy, but I play one on TV, and it's that,
right.
like, that down home. And it's like, he was the biggest piece of shit. Like, genuinely one of the worst things to ever happen to the world. And
Yes, I
yeah,
agree.
it's the same thing. And
That was a good line, though.
unfortunately,
That was a good line, though.
Not,
Not a cowboy, but I play one on TV. It's a good line. It's just so
Mhm.
bad that it's attached to such a crappy person.
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
true, man. He
I
really
don't
did
think that's
start
a
a lot of
quote of
shit.
him. I just said that because that's what he was. But I mean, like, that's like because that's the bravado he came into the presidency with too.
Yeah,
Like, Mr. Gorbachev, this town ain't big enough for the both of us type shit. And he did a lot of the same shit that Trump did. Like, he tried to go, like, tensions were calming between the USSR and the United States under Jimmy
right.
Carter, and had been for a decent decade, pretty much
Yeah,
at that point. Things were coming together, and then he comes in with this, like, gunslinger attitude, this big tough guy attitude, and it amps up the Cold War all over again, and probably likely extended the Cold War by another 5 to 10 years at least.
Yeah.
And
I mean, Jordan,
did a
surrendering
lot.
is defeat. Surrendering is defeat.
That's right.
If we would have done that, we would have lost, obviously.
Yeah, obviously. Well, and then
We
he had
learned
to
that we learned that
back.
lesson so well in Vietnam, so we just had to
Right.
keep repeating
Oh,
Yeah.
God, right?
Yeah.
But he did these same things where he came up with this really hard-nosed attitude and then was forced to back off of it the exact same way that Donald Trump has done with all these tariff things. And it's just, again, and it's like, this is what's frustrating, being somebody who enjoys consuming history, as you said, is like, we've seen it all before. And it's like, could you at least come up with, like, an original plot line for the end of the world? Like, I don't, like, it's just, it's feeling like reruns at this point, and I'm sick of, like, some original thought here would be great. Make it interesting, at least, you know?
My dad the other day was like, well, you got to give him that he's got a sense of humor, Donald Trump. I'm like, why do I have to give him that? Even if he does, why is that relevant to a president that is like just flamboyantly like becoming a fascist on live TV?
That is funny. Yeah, it is true though.
Well,
I mean, you do. I mean, but this is why they say those who don't study history are repeat it.
doomed to repeat it, yeah.
Yeah, but we could all, I guess we should all study it a bit more. But yeah, it is weird to watch the same things just cycling. This is the last thing I'll say in this, when Trump was elected the second time, I was in North Carolina because I went there to knock doors, and I brought with me the book I was reading at the time, which was a book on Vietnam. So I found out the Trump won. I'm crying my eyes out, right? It was like the worst, obviously. Get on the plane to fly back the day after the election, crying my eyes out. And then I'm like, I just got to read. I'm going to read and I'm like reading this Vietnam book, and I'm reading it and just realizing like, oh my God, it's all the same. Like it just all felt like all of a sudden, like we were just in this vicious cycle of repeating the same. I mean, I don't know. It was ironic that was the book I was reading at that time. Was it comforting? No, it was not. It was not comforting at all, but
No.
it was ironic. No. Anyway, on that cheery note.
Right.
Well, I guess probably my final question for you, and I know you said there was some stuff maybe you wanted to talk about as well, or ask me questions, and you're more than welcome to do that too. But I was just curious, because you are so engaged on such a boots on the ground and tangible way. What are your thoughts for the best way forward for the party to fix all of the things that are so broken?
Any of them in particular.
Any of them, yeah. Just one or two would be great. We haven't made great progress lately, so I think yeah, having those tangible steps forward, and you are the call to action person. You are the tangible works person, and so that's what I think is really important. Is, again, all of us like to bitch about everything that's wrong, and you like to fix the things that we're bitching about. So I want to know, like, what do you think is the best way forward here? They're going to be the most practical way forward.
Right. Well, I'm more of a like you said, boots on the ground, and less of a like the general strategizing the entire war. So, but what I will say is that when you get into a situation where you're dealing with what are they calling it, autocratic breakthrough, or whatever is happening right now, authoritarian breakthrough, people-powered movements are one of the only things that actually are effective. And so what I see happening that is working are the phone calls to representatives, the town halls, the crazy rowdy town halls, and also the protests, the Tesla takedowns, the street protests. So if you're somebody watching this and you've never gone to like a Tesla takedown, they're all over the place. They're like every weekend. On June 14th, they're having a big, huge protest day, No Kings, which is going to be the next really big day. And they're not just like, oh, let's all go hold this. They're very important. They're symbolically very important. And also, I don't want to say spiritually, but like morally. Yeah. Okay.
Incredibly.
Like,
yeah, no,
they're deeply important. If you're feeling despair, you will feel so much better when you go. And also, from a morale standpoint, it helps us and it really hurts the other side. And it's not an accident that as we have taken to the streets and had all these protests, first we're, killing Tesla, killing Target, So we're having like a monetary impact on some of these really toxic companies, and that's hugely important. Elon Musk might have stayed in the government for another fucking year, and he's slowly pulling out. And he's already done a shitload of damage, but at least he's starting to leave, and that's because of us. So, and also we see Republicans starting to pull back on these Medicaid cuts. I mean, they're still going to try, but like they're definitely aware that they are fucked with their constituents. I hope it's okay to curse here.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Okay. So these things are, and you know, if you study these kinds of movements and push back against authoritarianism, the only thing that really works is getting, you know, they say 3.5% of a population engaged in the struggle. And that doesn't mean a violent struggle. It adamantly does not mean that. It means a peaceful struggle, but it means getting out in the streets, participating in strikes, participating in boycotts. So if you're still not doing anything, you know, subscribe to my newsletter if you want someone to give you little things to do every day, or just get the 5 Calls app, sign up with the 5051 people, or with Indivisible. These are great organizations who are doing exactly that. They're organizing people. And put in your calendar that you're going to go to one of these gatherings on June 14th. There will end up being like 1,100 of them all over the country, tiny towns, big cities. And what we're doing is showing Congress that we are not tolerating this. And it's hard to explain in a linear fashion how this will work, but it will. It has before, and it will again. And I also want people to trust in Trump's also destroying himself. Because, and I'm not saying we shouldn't be fighting every fucking day, because we should, but as his policies start really kicking in, his tariffs, his economic destruction is going to be profound. I don't think people understand.
Oh my,
that.
no.
I think you do.
I said this the other day though. I was like, you guys don't understand. We are in a recession right now. Like, they won't announce it until at least Q2 or Q3 after we have Q2's GDP growth. But we're in a recession currently, and by the time they announce the recession, we will be in a depression. Like, there's no way out of that. Even if he undid all of the fucked policies that he has done to this point, there's no way to right that train in time to avoid at least a minor depression, and he's obviously not doing that. So we're going to get hit hard, and I don't think people realize that at this point.
Well, there's that, and then there's the public health issues. There's the, what if we get some kind of sickness that sweeps across country? There's no one left to deal with that. There's no food inspection happening anymore. So when the E. coli things start happening, the FAA is fucked. We're going to sadly have more plane crashes. Like, I don't want to say this stuff to fearmonger. This is just fact. If you take government oversight out of things, things are going to fall apart. And people have been taking the government for granted my entire life. Fuck the government. We don't need it. Right. Because you have no idea what it does, and you don't know what it's doing for you. Well, we're about to
since Reagan, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right. I'm from the worst words in the English language. I'm from the government, and I'm here to help. Fuck you. We're about to find out the logical conclusion of Reagan's cynicism, which was really just about getting rich people richer.
Right? Is Utah just banned fluoride in their water? So like, this is just one of the insane things that they're just going to keep trying to do, and none of them are going to work out well.
Yeah. I mean, good luck to you. And then, you know, my only hope is that on the other side of this, after we have hit this atrocious bottom, which I think is almost inevitable, is like maybe people finally come to understand like government has profound value. And when it works well, which it hasn't always for us at all, but when it works well, it is it's an incredibly critical thing that we should nurture and build, and we can. But we've got to stop shitting on it and taking it for granted and voting people in who have no doing anything other than just destroying things for the sake of destroying them and then getting rich off of the parts.
Even when the government doesn't work well, because I mean, we could argue that the United States government has never worked great. Like, it's never been a very equitable government. You know, but even when it doesn't work well, it still works really well. Like, you go back and you look at pictures of New York City or Los Angeles or San Diego from, you know, 100 years ago, and you see you can't see anything because the smog's so bad.
Right.
You look at how many times has the Cuyahoga River lit on fire because that didn't have government oversight. You know, you think about all of the things, even the stuff that they like to credit capitalism with is usually stuff that happened because of government funding. You know, we've got microwaves and MRI machines because of NASA, not because of Jeff Bezos or some, you know, rich asshole who innovated it. You know,
Right.
all the things that went into your iPhone. Like Steve Jobs took a bunch of government research and just packaged it into a phone. That's all he
Yeah.
did. Like he didn't
Yeah.
invent any of that stuff. He was not an innovator. I mean, it was innovative to think to put all that stuff together and sell it commercially, but all of that
Right.
was thanks to the government. You
Right.
know, our GPS system is exclusively run by like one office of the government. Like how fragile our GPS system is when you really think about it
Ooh, I
is
didn't know that.
insane. Oh yeah,
Ah,
it's
yeah. Huh.
Yeah,
one little it's
the
Air
Air
Force.
Force. Yeah, exactly.
Oh
Yeah, I
God,
was
that's
thinking of like describing
right.
it like the government like does things right because they control, created, and run GPS. And if they didn't do things well, you'd be missing turns and
Mm-hmm.
you wouldn't be getting
Yeah.
notifications. But you don't. It works just fine. And that's how
Yeah.
government is supposed to work. And that you just don't
Mm-hmm.
see it. You don't realize that it's okay, they're doing things for your benefit, you just don't see
Mm-hmm.
them.
Right.
And that the economic uh just the GDP gain from like something like GPS that we just take for granted now that
Right.
runs. You think about all of the logistics in the world, the stuff that gets delivered to your doorsteps, the things that get your planes where they need to go, the thing that gets your
Yeah.
car where it needs to go. The the economic impact of that one little thing that the government does is immeasurable.
Yeah.
And then you just amplify that over everything.
Yeah.
Most of our medical research and advances have become from government funding, and we're cutting cancer research again now from Harvard because God
Yep.
forbid they have DEI. Like, and people just don't realize it, and
Yeah.
it's sad that we've allowed rich people to exploit that and claim that stuff as their own. Like Elon's doing now with SpaceX. Like again, all NASA research that he's just
Yeah.
privatizing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I think I'm sorry, I'm beating a dead horse here, but I get so frustrated when people like shit on the government when the government is still, I mean, it's far from perfect, but it's still incredibly important and incredibly effective at making our lives better, even though our lives still suck at this point.
Right. And you look at something like Social Security, which has never missed a payment, right, since
Mm-hmm.
1935. And now we're watching the Doge guys, and from the people I'm talking to, it's like it is a matter of time until
Mm-hmm.
literally it collapses. And
Mm-hmm.
like I hope it doesn't collapse completely, but it's really bad. And so,
It
and
is
this
super.
thing, which, has, as Representative Larson likes to say over and over again, is a guarantee. It is different than if you had a privatized fund because it is guaranteed that you will get X amount, no matter what the
Yep.
economy is doing, you will get that amount.
Mm-hmm.
We've taken it for granted. Well, it's not enough. Right. No, it wasn't enough. It should have been more.
Mm-hmm.
All of those things, but that amount was guaranteed. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so all of this is to say, to sort of try to tie a bow on it, that what I hope comes out of this in the long run, although I think we're in for a very painful short run, is that people finally really understand. It's a terrible civics lesson in what the government is actually has been doing for us all this time that we just completely were blithely unaware of. Not you,
Well,
maybe not all of us,
no, no,
but
no. Yeah, no, I understand that.
the average American.
Sadly though, again, being the scholars, the amateur scholars of history that we are, this is a trend, and this is a trend I've noticed specifically with like economic policies. Is they're on a cyclical century cycle, and it seems like they try something absolutely horrible, which is tariffs or trickle down economics, because Reagan didn't invent trickle down economics. Republicans haven't had an original thought in 100 years.
Right.
It was
No.
horse and sparrow economics, right? It was eat shit economics. You overfeed the horse, it can't digest everything, it shits it out, and then the sparrow
Right.
can be fed. And so like it was literally eat shit economics and trickle down is piss on you economics.
Yeah.
It's but they just did it 100 years prior. That was the late 1800s. Then in the late so it was the 1880s, and in the 1980s they bring it back again. Obviously, the tariff thing was really big around the turn of the century. That led to the
Yep.
Great Depression. 100 years later, guess what we're doing again? And so it's yeah, I think long run or like medium run, we will hopefully figure it out if our country survives and we don't end up in nuclear war or
Right.
the entire ecosystem doesn't collapse around us or all
Right.
of the other existential things that we're worrying about. Even if we make it through that, if we don't find a way to make these lessons, long learned, generationally learned, and not just if you don't have living memory of it, you're like, yeah, we can try this thing again. We'll be fucked eventually, even if we do make it through this. And so that's hopefully what we're doing here, trying to teach people these things is something that persists beyond, our generation, our lives. But
Right.
I don't know. I'm stressed about it.
I hear that. I hear that you're stressed about it. I would only remind you that there are certain things like I said before, there is a sort of trajectory in which we are progressing slowly and not going backwards. I mean, if you think about the fact that, the LGBTQ people, there's a lot of backsliding, but like there are basic rights and acceptance in a way that like even 20 years ago was quite unthinkable. So I guess I just always try to remind, like, because I have a 15-year-old trans kid, so remind them that like it is bad and it may get worse, but like it will likely not go back to where we were 20 years ago. Like some progress remains.
Unless we go
But yeah,
full
no, I mean,
fascist, then
Yeah.
it's
full
all up
fascist,
all
yeah.
up for grabs. But if assuming that we do have an election in 2028 and it
A real
isn't
one,
and it
not one of
isn't
those
Donald
Russian
Trump
style
on the
elections.
right, it isn't
Yeah.
Donald Trump on the ballot, like there's still going to be another day. The sun's going to rise again.
Yep. Right. Well, let's get again, a day at a time. Like, this is why I tell people just a day at a time. Because, like, if I start worrying about what's going to happen in
Chop wood, carry
2020,
water.
chop wood, carry water, you guys. And yeah, and just
No.
love the people around you, because that's like the antidote to fascism is love, as far as I'm concerned. So,
Well, I'm glad you're still buying or like believing the Obama quote, what the long arm of justice or the long arm of time arcs towards justice or something. I'm paraphrasing
yeah.
very poorly, but he did say that, and I believed him at the time, and it's been a lot harder to like keep the faith in that through obviously the past few years. So, but it is nice to hear a calm head of somebody I respect on very deeply. I have a ton of respect for you. To hear them say that, it helps calm my soul a little bit. So thank you.
I believe that people can bend that arc. I mean, again, I think that the arc does not just do its own thing, it is bent. And I think that there are more people who demand and desire justice than there are people who want to squelch it. So while I believe we can be set back in the short term, I think in the long term, the fight for justice will continue and will continue to creep forwards and prevail. That is what I believe.
That's what we all need to believe if we're going to keep marching forward. So we need to be reminded of it every once in a while. And I appreciate the fact that you keep reminding us of it. You're doing really, really incredible work.
Thanks. So are you. So are you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We've definitely kept you longer than our normal allotted time, which is not uncommon because, as Taylor pointed out, I like to talk a lot.
It wasn't even like a diss. It was just like, yeah, we end up just talking, which is normally a good thing. But yeah, I don't think we've kept an episode under an hour since like the first 6 months we've been doing this.
Yeah.
It's always our goal and
never
accomplished. But
all right.
thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and if there's anything else you wanted to ask or talk about, we certainly can.
I think we're good.
All right. But then otherwise, I'm just going to let you go ahead, plug all the things you want to plug, any shameless self-promotion you want to do, anything you're working with, any projects. Let people know how they can find that stuff, how they can find you again. Yeah, just do your thing there.
Oh yeah, I mean, I already said it. You can just, if you want the newsletter, I'm on Substack. You can look up Jess Craven 101 on Substack, or look up the newsletter Chop Wood, Carry Water Daily Actions. And then on all the social platforms, I'm at Jess Craven 101. And that's it. Just keep doing. Oh, I have a podcast too called the Practivist Pod. So where we also kind of give you things that you can do and try to focus on the good stuff that's happening and where we are seeing progress. So come find me there as well.
Perfect. And one last thing I wanted to point out too that you mentioned here was that the calling your senators and calling your representatives and all that stuff, going to the protests is working. And so often people feel like, because it's not an immediate response, people feel like it's not working and they're getting discouraged about it. So you heard it here from the person who does this every single day and puts the work in. Remember that your voices are being heard even when you feel like they're not. So thank you
absolutely.
again so much for all the incredible work you do. I look forward to meeting you in person. Hopefully our paths will cross before too long. And absolutely follow Jess. She is an amazing wealth of information and calls to action and share her stuff wherever you can. And
Thanks,
for
guys.
us, obviously, if you want to support the podcast, you can do that through a subscription on YouTube, Patreon. I do have a Substack, which you can subscribe to as well. We have merch, offtowagon.com, my personal merch, and Let Them Eat Toast merch. And other than that, we just thank you, and we will see you guys again next week.
Yeah, Jessica, it was a really great pleasure meeting you and chatting with you here today. So hope our paths cross soon.
Yeah, you too, Taylor. Thank you. Thanks, Jordan.
Absolutely.
You guys have a good day.
You too. Thanks for tuning
Bye.
in, guys.